Hello, welcome to 15 minutes of consulting best practices. My name is Maria Isabel Rios. And as you can see, David is still on vacation, but we are here. And I am here to answer your questions about how to create success for you and your clients in your consulting firm. For those of you who are familiar with the space, it takes me a minute to see your questions, to see your comments, and we invite your participation. So don't be shy. Come in right away, post your question right away. As Jaren is putting in, thank you, Jaren. Type your questions in the chat so I have a chance to see them and we all get a chance to discuss them today. In the meantime, Jaren, why don't you put in the questions that came in during the week? The first question. Thank you. This question is from Gabby. Thank you, Gabby. Gabby says, I've taken your advice and switched my practice from a per hour fee model to a retainer model. Sometimes when I estimate retainer fees, the numbers are much lower than my estimates on an hourly basis because I try to homogenize my work for all project phases. Is this correct? How can I adjust my estimates? And hello, John. Happy Monday to you too. All right, Gabby. This is a bit of a head scratcher for me. So good work switching away from a per hour basis. That's a huge win for you, for your firm. Further encourage you to make the leap into value-based fees, right? So you're taking the first step, one more big leap to go. Your fees, however, should not be lower, much less have a substantial gap, especially if you're comparing estimates and not actuals. So from what I just read, the issue seems to be that you're over standardizing your retainer model. And if you're listening and if you're here today and that's the wrong hypothesis, let me know, right? So you can have the calculations behind your retainer fees be as sophisticated as you need, even starting with a per hour model and then convert that into what the client would see as a retainer to allow you to stand in integrity from a fee perspective. So if you've done the calculations so the numbers are equivalent, and you anticipate objections when you present the fees as a retainer, I encourage you to go ahead and explore those objections before you even present them to the client. Which of those are actual objections you've heard from prospects, and which are those that only live in our heads? Sometimes we have objections that we anticipate hearing and we've never actually heard them from prospects in actual conversation. So here's an invitation: distinguish between the two, right? How would you need to reframe the way you speak about your fees and the value you deliver in light of what you're anticipating to hear from your prospects as pushback? Do you have an impact problem, perhaps, where you anticipate the prospect is not agreeing with the ROI of your effort, in which case you need to look into that very carefully? Is it a risk allocation problem where the prospect is saying that in a retainer model, they're taking more of the risk onto themselves and the risk is less on you, or vice versa? How else can you solve for that? So two elements in kind of to summarize, right? First one, distinguish between what's in your head versus a real prospect concern. And here's the hint: you may have to wait for a prospect to actually tell you to be able to make the distinction. And two, once you know what the concerns are, how else can you address those concerns in a way that it's not reducing your fees, right? What other tools do you have to address those concerns? Okay, Gabby, let me know if those are helpful tools if you're here. And if not, let me know via email, which is how you sent your question. And hello, Suzanne, and hello, Tony. Let me read your questions from today. Okay, Suzanne, you're saying, I'm exploring rebooting my marketing solo consultancy since I haven't gained traction in the job market. All right, that's tough. Exploring certificate programs to upskill and validate my expertise. I, as always, love any thoughts you may have. All right, Suzanne, if you're not getting traction, good idea to reboot your consultancy. Here's where you know where to go. Do an exercise in finding where are the fish. You always want to fish where the fish are, right? So you can do that through a research-driven approach, which is where you basically ask folks what they are investing in and what are their needs, what are their highest problems, what problems do they want to solve, right? Then you will follow that and you will figure if gaining any certificates will help you in that route or not. What's the difference between your skill level of today and what would you need to be able to address those needs in terms of capabilities, in terms of experience, basically where are you today? What do your prospects need? What's the gap, right? What kind of a maybe partnership or team members do you need to align yourself to be able to fish where the fish are? That's the number one route I would recommend. The other one is look at, for example, platforms. What's moving? What's available? What type of projects are there available today in your market, in your area? How are you aligned against the capabilities of folks that are applying towards those projects? If you can get those some visibility around that, that's where you would know it. And if you can, and you have past clients or peers in your network that you can also interview, understand what are skill levels that are attached to that. So then let me know if that's helpful as a guide, and we'll keep going from there. And also, if you're here and you're listening, I cannot see you. As one of you asked me the other day, the only way I can know you're here is if you comment. So chime in. All right. Tony, you asked, when you do a talk and do not have a phone number for all the participants from the conference staff, do you suggest pulling their phone numbers off a Soho type platform and just calling or following with an email? Ooh, all right. So Tony, there is an element that's perhaps it's better towards that. Exactly. Research, platforms. Example of platforms. So without necessarily advocating for one versus another, right? Catalan, Umbrex, Veritox, Graphite, what else? Hello, Susan. Hi, Rusty. Chime in, right? If there are specific platforms that I can't remember right now. So those are specific platforms. So Tony, back to your question, right? Do we put phone numbers of a Soho type platform and call? Do we follow up for an email? For the conference staff, presumably, you have been communicating with them to arrange your participation in the talk. I would ask for that information beforehand if you can. Make sure you have all of their contact information readily available. And I would go back to the channel of communication that you communicate before you did the talk. I would also set up a touch point for after the event in advance, right? So if you know you're going to do a talk, say on Thursday, set up a touch point for Friday or for maybe early next week where you already are committed to speaking with them and you already had it all arranged so that you both get feedback on the event, what comes next, and what you can line up. As to conference attendees, we always encourage you to set up a call to action where you, in addition to either, asking a question that it's relevant to the attendees and getting some either form of feedback or some sort of a response that it's relevant to your talk, you can get contact information for folks that are relevant to you, and you can have a way or means of establishing a one-to-one communication with people who attended your talk. So keep that in mind as you're setting up future events, right? Find and set up your touch points in advance with the people who organize the talk. Make sure you get all that information. Use their preferred communication channels if you can, and also establish what's the pattern for getting feedback, for keeping in touch. Set up your call to actions with the attendees as well, and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. Right. Rusty, you're asking, you have a couple of new clients, and one is asking for a monthly update of deliverables results. How do you do that in a way that's both effective for the client and efficient for me? Ooh, I love this, right? Because what your client is asking is, presumably, right, want to know where the project is going and how are you making progress. So the key to the question of how do you make it valuable depends a lot on the type of consulting you're delivering and where does it stand in the way of your project, how long your project is, how big is your delivery team, how often do you go back to your client, and all of that. So one of the elements I will suggest, Russ, is when you think about your project and the arc in the overall, and the client that it's asking you for the monthly updates is, what do they need to know that it's pure information based? Can you automate that piece as much as possible? Can you make it easy for you to put together, easy for your client to know what is valuable for them? What do you want them to know that would either facilitate a decision or facilitate capturing value or knowing value, right? That would create the most value out of your project as well. The third piece that you would want to know is, what are inflection points in your project that are coming up that you want to gather alignment for? Those three pieces include in your updates, and find a way to streamline production so that not only are they getting value out of it, they know the priorities are the right priorities, but you're also getting value out of the interactions and setting it up, both in terms of clarifying your thinking and obtaining valuable feedback from your client. So let me know, right? And I see VR is offering to send you a template, so that's fantastic. Always, always, always keep in mind be right side up about it, right? What is valuable in the interaction? What's the most value you can generate for both the client and the project in the overall out of the updates, right? And then follow it downstream to make it efficient for you, right? And it's an ongoing HR advisory service. Perfect. So what decisions do they have to make? What's the most value, right? And with that, we come to the end of our 50 minutes together. A word of warning: next week, Monday, is Memorial Day in the US, so it's a holiday for us. So there will be no LinkedIn Live next Monday. However, 2 weeks from now, we'll be back. So please add Monday Live, the link that Jaren is going to post to your calendars if you don't have it already. You can always find us at davidafields.com/Monday Live. If you add that to your calendar, it will bring you to the right spot on Mondays every time. Also, you have asked us, because we haven't shared in a while, if you want to send questions in between the week, and we start always with a question that came in via email, send it to info@davidafields.com. that will get it in the hands of our right team member. And that way we can start with your question on Monday, hopefully. Third, if you haven't subscribed to the articles that come out every Wednesday, that's also how you get information about programs or things that are happening in our firm, davidafields.com/subscribe. And thank you all for joining me today. I think in 2 weeks, David is back. So if he'll join us, it will be the two of us. Have a great week. And remember that consulting, it's about our clients. It's about them. It's about creating value for them. And through them, we create value and create success for all of you. So thank you. Again, see you in a couple of weeks. Bye.